And we are live. Katy
Hooray!
Wherry. Hello, Katy Wherry.
Hello.
So,
Hello, Jeff.
thank you for being here. This is really fun.
Yeah.
In my first time doing this with Joseph Aaron Price, he said I should open with sort of talking a little bit about why this is a thing. So,
Yeah, definitely.
I know I've told you this, but for anyone who's listening, so the reason
Yeah.
I want to do this, I'm really lucky to have a lot of incredible musicians in my life. I just have happened to fall. I mean, I guess it's not really happenstance because I'm a musician, so it seems like it's natural. But I don't know. I really admire all the people in my life that do music, and
Me too.
it's already pretty. I'm sure you would agree with this. It's already a pretty lonely existence being a musician. We spend a lot of time by ourselves, listening, practicing, studying, whatever it is, and the trade-off is the small amount of time relative to the amount of time we spend practicing that we get to perform, play with people, even if it's just a jam session or something like that. And it's one of the payoffs, but it's a really important payoff.
Yeah.
And we're really missing that now with the current situation. And the way that I've been putting it, the way that it seems to be resonating with people is I feel like my musical world has been reduced to a population of one. And I want to expand that world out because it's not that small. It really isn't. And
Yeah.
so if I can keep up conversations with people about music, and on the off chance anyone really cares about this, if it gets you a couple more followers, a couple more likes, that's really cool.
I
That's
don't
really
care.
awesome. At the end of the day, it's good for me to do this. I felt so good after talking with Joseph the other day.
Yeah.
And I always feel good after talking with you. So that's why we're doing this.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, for me, it's not the likes or the followers or how many people end up seeing, even if just one person sees it and gets some amount of inspiration from it or
mm,
learn something, that's awesome. But I think just for us to be connecting to each other and ultimately, to anyone else, that should be the goal.
yeah.
And
Well,
all
it's
the
gonna at least one person will feel that way because I already feel that way. So.
Me too.
All
My
right.
mom.
So on a little bit of a brighter note, Katy Wherry, did you know no less than 7 dogs have been elected mayor in various towns across the U.S.? Four of them in one town,
What?
Rabbit Hash, Kentucky. Since
I was
1994, the only mayor of Kentucky has been. There's 4 different dogs, but it's only ever been a dog since 1994.
that's
Um, it's a town of like 350 people, and I think at that level, I think just any kind of like civil municipality becomes pretty much irrelevant. So they figured,
Yep.
screw it, we'll elect a dog. It also costs $1 to vote in Rabbit Hash, Kentucky, which is hilarious. It's somehow simultaneously very non-American and also very American at the same
Yeah,
time.
a little bit so.
And it's funny because no matter if every single person in the town votes, the best you get is like $350, which I don't even think is enough, is like dog food for a year. I think that's maybe a
Yeah.
couple of months, and they've all been like pretty big dogs. So I learned that yesterday, and I have been sharing that fact with everyone. So, well, Katy Wherry, tell us a little bit about yourself. What is it that you do? What are you doing now?
Yeah. I mean, that's a very good question because I think that there are a lot of answers to it. in my life. I am a flutist first and foremost, and among other things, I do a lot of work for other people, a lot of things for myself. But yeah, try to keep up the keep up the music life, no matter what. So yeah, I living in Colorado now, but it's so weird to not be traveling. I usually am traveling like every weekend, and
Mm.
so it's crazy to be in one place. But yeah, we'll just say I'm Katie. I play the flute.
So you started the Facebook group Etude of the Week, which
Yeah.
I don't know if I ever told you this. I actually knew about before I knew that you started it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. It,
That's
it it
awesome.
it popped up a lot in when I was very active on Facebook. It popped up a
Right.
lot in things like the Internet Cello Society, and
For real? I didn't know
which is
that.
crazy because the Internet Cello Society is like a million something members, and your group has like 6,000, and it's like you should share
Oh,
you should
that's
share that group one time and like quadruple your numbers, but I don't know. It's
yep.
mostly old people who don't know how to do Facebook. Sorry, Internet Cello Society. It came up in the Violin Guild too, who I'm willing to talk a little bit more bluntly about because they banned me.
What?
Well, they
What'd
did
you
that.
do?
They did that thing where they were like, "Hey, listen, you can't laugh react posts. It's bullying if you laugh react a post, you know." And it's like, okay, so if it, like somebody who doesn't really play violin much posts a video of them practicing something from like Suzuki Book 1 and it's not that great. Okay. It's a little mean-spirited to post a laugh react.
Right.
It's not bullying. Come on, man. If you post a video of you playing, there are people who post videos who are, you know, absolute killer musicians who would get really, really, you know, snarky feedback. It's going to happen no matter what level you're at. So, of course, the post that the mod made about, hey, you can't laugh react posts, I of course laugh reacted that post and I was immediately banned. So
Yeah, let's do it.
I brought that on myself, I guess, but it's guys are petty. It's petty, guys. Come on.
Well, you know,
so
I'm lucky that our group is very open. So no, it's fine.
Yeah.
You're good.
So tell me a little bit about Etude of the Week and how that got started and what's it like now.
Yeah, I mean, I am just so, especially now, so grateful to what it's turned into. But to start from the beginning, I graduated with my master's degree from CU Boulder in 2014. And I remember feeling, it actually kind of ties into what you were just talking about, you know, the lonely musician sort of thing. But once you're out of school, the opportunities to play, the motivation to practice, you know, all of these things change just immediately. It's like all of a sudden you had all of these super fulfilling, especially in grad school, right? Like really fulfilling chamber music ensembles to play with, playing with the orchestra. Your private lessons are every week, and then all of a sudden that rug is completely pulled out from underneath you.
Yeah.
And it's like sink or swim, you know. It's so easy to just be like, okay, well, guess I don't have to practice anymore. You know, how do you maintain that motivation, especially for like I get a lot of my motivation from pleasing other people, which I'm working on in myself. But you know, when you don't have that professor to play for or the other people that you're playing with, how do you do it for yourself? So I thought, you know, etudes have always been a thing that my teachers have said, hey, you should do these. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And then I never really did. So I thought, what a great thing to do to just start this Facebook group, you know, use this necessary evil for something that could be good and provide motivation for myself.
Yeah, I love that.
And I really just asked, I asked a few of my colleagues from grad school, as well as some of the people I know from the international master classes I've done, and just said, hey, would you guys be willing to do this with me as a way for us to motivate each other to play etudes every week?
Great.
And I think for the first year, it was maybe like 10 people. I need to go back and actually look and see who were the first people that posted with me. But, and then it sort of evolved from just a way for me to motivate myself into a space that is open and all-encompassing, and a place for people to feel, first of all, safe, you know, in sharing this sort of vulnerability and growth with each other. Opened up to adult amateurs, opened up to students who are younger, high school kids, you know, teachers who wanted to give assignments to their students, whatever. A place that offers really kind, constructive criticism, even though mostly it's just like, yay!
Yeah.
But I think that's okay, you know, in a way. And it's now 5-6 years later or whatever, it's almost 7,000 people from like 110 countries or something.
Amazing.
It's really amazing.
So I didn't realize I actually have a comment stream here, and Mark McClurkin. Hi Mark. I miss you, Mark.
Hi Mark.
Mark McClurkin is a band teacher, and a really good one too. In the Highlands Ranch area, I guess. I don't know if you teach anywhere else. He says, "Hi Joe, euphonium is the cello of the concert band." Sure, Mark. Whatever you say, buddy. You're not wrong, but yeah. Yeah, so I think I love the idea of creating a space outside of music school where you can share things that are basically works in progress. And I don't know if you listened to the whole stream Joseph and I did, but we talked quite a bit about the idea of kind of getting out of the paradigm of you only show off what you do when it's at the highest level of polish and refinement that you can achieve. That's a very academic way to approach things. And I don't think that it's, sorry, what was that?
There is value in that, I think.
There is value in that, yeah. And I was going to say, I don't think we should just half-ass every performance and say, well, it's a work in progress. No, I'm sorry. If you're being paid to go give a show, you need to give your best performance. But again, kind of tying into the idea of the musical world being really lonely, except for things like performances, really. The ability to have a place where you can share and say, listen, I've been working on this for a week. Here's what it is. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and there's missed notes. Maybe you got to stop and restart. Maybe, rhythms are a little squishy or something like that. Where you can be free to look at a mistake and go, this isn't a reflection of my character.
Right.
It's just a reflection of where I am right now. I mean, there's no, it depends on the piece once you get to a certain level of musicianship, but very, very rarely do you just sight read it and it's great.
Right. I think there's a place, especially now with the way that things are and this lack of connection that we have, to pull back that curtain and realize that no matter what level that you're at, there's a certain level of vulnerability that exists. Hang on one second. There's going to be, just pause. Hi. Oh, okay. Sorry guys. It's dog bath time. They are leaving.
All good.
Yeah, but there's this, I'm like, this is my garage office, just so you guys all know. So
all good.
Just, yeah, there's a level of that all people go through, whether you are one of the top professionals, famous instrumentalist, whatever, or an adult amateur or a kid that's learning. We all go through a process of learning a thing. Right. And we all have those things that we're focusing on. And so I'm so grateful to the people in Etude of the Week because, those professionals who are sharing those processes with each other, as well as the adults. I mean, I learned just as much from the amateurs as I do the professionals, I think. So
yeah,
it's become such a beautiful community.
That's awesome.
We all know different stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why not share all the stuff we know with each other?
100%.
And just make each other better. Let's do that.
I can't, no matter how much time I spend practicing or reading or whatever, I could do nothing but that. And I still will never know everything. And it makes that need for community that much more important. So I started playing music when I was about 10. Well, I played violin for like 6 months when I was 9 and I quit because I didn't like it, but I picked up cello when I was 10 and then the rest is, history. I didn't call myself a musician until I was about 17. I was about 16 or 17 because I struggled with it. I was like, well, I'm not good enough to go get a job at a symphony. No one's asking me to play recitals, solo concerts. So I'm not a musician. And then at a certain point I was like, well, the sort of illusion that at a certain point you just kind of know everything and then you're good. I realized that wasn't real. That's never going to happen. It's the same realization you come to about your parents at some point when you go, oh, these people aren't perfect, and neither will I will never be perfect, and it was that realization that made me go, okay, so what does it mean to be a musician? It doesn't mean that you just know everything and can do everything on the instrument and that you don't have to practice or that you practice minimally. What it means is that there's something that you've sort of embraced an identity of, I'm somebody who learns, like I'm somebody who practices, and that sounds really like arrogant to say, I guess I'm someone who learns, I know how to learn, but that really is the process of playing music. It's learning how to learn. I tell my students all the time, especially once they get to a certain level, my job is not to turn you into a cellist. My job is to teach you how to do that for yourself. I can't do that for you. I can't move your fingers for you. I can't play your bow for you. I can't practice for you. You have to do that for yourself. And so unfortunately, I can't just sort of download what it means to be a cellist into your brain, although maybe that will be the case at some point. It's not right now. So, the idea is I have to give you these tools, and it breaks my heart to see so many students like 9 and 10 years old who've been playing for a couple months or a year who make a mistake. They play a wrong note or they mess up a rhythm or they play up the wrong bow direction and they go, oh, I'm so sorry. It's like, why are you sorry? Why are you sorry? Don't be sorry. I don't care. I'm happy for this. I'm actually happy that you made a mistake, not because I like watching you fail in some sort of, perverse, sadistic way of like, haha, it's great, he failed. No, but because it's like, oh, good, and because now this is good. We can talk about this. We can focus on this.
But why? How does that happen?
Right. Yeah. It's the mindset of I am someone who fails versus I am a failure. If you are someone who fails, that's fine because you're going to fail. You're going to make mistakes. But if you are a failure, then you will do nothing but fail. And unfortunately, it sucks to see kids so young have that I am a failure mindset. Like, you're 9 years old. You're not going to be good at anything. You're not good at anything at 9. You're not even good at being 9. Like, come on, man. Like,
I think that does apply though to everyone. And I think that a lot of the issues that we're having in communication in our society come from this idea that we feel like we have to pretend like we know more than we do. And I think that if everyone would just admit that nobody knows shit, then like it would be so much better, because there's a humility in that. And then there's an understanding that, hey, if I'm having a conversation with you, or I'm teaching you music, or something is happening, we learn from each other always.
Yeah.
I'm not better than you. I don't know more than you just because I have this different experience. So.
But you are better, and you know more in different ways, maybe.
Exactly.
That's the important distinction to make. Now.
But so okay.
Yeah. At the same time, though, you may be better than me in some ways, and in just ways that I haven't achieved yet. And you may know things, but more things. If you could quantify the number of things, you may know more things than I do. But sure. At a certain point, it becomes pointless, because how are we supposed to sit down and quantify the number of things that you know? It would take forever. And you probably discover new things that you know in the process, but then you'd have to go through the process of, well, is this true? You have to check every freaking thing, and it's not a productive way to kind of look at things. So this idea about I think we're kind of getting into the social media discussion that we were having earlier, which I'm super interested in. What's your relationship with social media, and has it changed with the pandemic?
I think that my relationship with social media is constantly changing. Whether it's on a yearly, monthly, daily, hourly basis, it's changing all the time. Yeah. I think that I really have two sides of that now in my life. My experience with social media really started with doing work for other people. Specifically Sir James Galway, and we can talk about that later, but that's kind of where that started, was managing a social media account for someone else. And I was always like kind of on it. It's so funny to see the memories that pop up when I was in high school, like Katy Wherry is taking a nap.
Yeah. Katy Wherry is rocking out, Yeah.
Whatever. But I think now my gut reaction to any social media things is just like pretty much disgust, and and I don't want to deal with it. Yeah. But I think that because I have seen Etude of the Week, which is straight up on Facebook, evolve in a way that is so beautiful, and has created a community that is so just loving and open and kind and good, from all of these different countries. That to me is the ideal purpose of social media, what Etude of the Week has turned into.
But it doesn't I agree with you. That seems to be the ideal, but it doesn't seem like that's what most of it. I mean, I think that you end up getting these insular, and I don't mean insular in a bad way, but these insular communities that have this very singular focus. Etude of the Week is post your etudes, get feedback. That's it. There's no politics, there's no coronavirus conspiracies, nothing like that. And if people do decide to post that, I'm sure you guys are like, please take this somewhere else. We're going to delete your post.
No, I delete it.
Yeah, which I think you should. There are other places for you to post that.
I'm not trying to filter people's things. You can say or think whatever you want to, but
right.
That's very sacred for that.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's not a censorship issue. It's just like we've created this space specifically to do one thing, and you do not get to do other things here. It's like my house is my house, and I don't want people in here shooting heroin in my bathroom. I think you should be free to shoot up heroin if you want. I think we should decriminalize all drugs. And if you want to shoot up heroin in your bathroom, I think you should be free to do that and deal with the consequences on your own. Don't do it in my house. That's not censorship. That's not me being a fascist. That's just me saying this is not. I don't want this in my space. I deleted I didn't delete my Facebook because I do run my like professional Facebook through my personal Facebook account, but I deleted the app off of my phone at the end of May, right after the George Floyd killing, because it was just, there's coronavirus going on, and I didn't have a lot of friends who were posting conspiracies, but I did have a couple, which is fine. I'll look into them, I'll read them, but I don't, whatever. Yeah. I think it's kind of silly to think it's fake, but if you want to focus on a real conspiracy, focus on the birds. They're not real, guys. We need to wake up. We can talk about that at length later. I'm very happy to talk about that. Okay. But it was like people that I love, that I know personally, that I love. I'm not averse to just like cutting ties with people. If you're a toxic person, I'm very sometimes too quick to do that. So these are people that I love, that I trust, that I know are very kind and generous and gentle people, who are saying things on Facebook that they would not say in real life to other people in our friend group. It's like, I know that you would not be this mean and this vitriolic if you were sitting across the table at each other. So why are you acting like this? This makes no sense. Yeah,
I really think that that's the 98% of social media that has turned into something really dangerous, I think, actually, and like really scary. So it has destroyed our ability to have real, open, and intelligent conversations with each other in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. No one wants to listen because everyone is literally just like vomiting their opinions everywhere.
Yeah. I've lost friends because of this kind of interaction. I really have. I mean, it's and I'm not going to pretend like I'm not guilty of being as mean and vitriolic online, meaner and more vitriolic online than I would in person. But it just seems like so many people are unaware of this. It's like, dude, why are you talking to me this way? Like my solution to that is like, I'm not going to talk about that stuff on social media. I'm not going to do it. I am 100% happy to have all of the difficult conversations. Mm-hmm. I will talk about, and listen to what you think, whether it's completely against what I think or not, but I'm not going to do it there. I think text is a really bad way to have discussions. I think that's a great way to put out your own thoughts, write an article, write a book. Sure. That's great. I don't think it's a productive way to have discussion, because most people, I think, at least, well, I shouldn't say most people, myself, when I was going on Facebook a lot, it was when I had downtime. Yeah. Or I'm sorry. It wasn't when I had downtime. It was like, I'm going to practice. Okay, I'm going to take a break because my hand kind of hurts. I'll scroll through Facebook. 30 minutes later, I'm not in the place to have a discussion. I'm not prepared for it. I have other things to do. And what happens is you make a comment, someone responds. You make a comment, someone responds. And I'm not a writer. Like, I can't really I have a hard time expressing my thoughts, like just speaking sometimes, and it just doesn't seem to be a productive way to do things. But everyone's so caught up in it, and it's like, something like the coronavirus is an important issue, and we should talk about it. But calling each other names and saying, if you don't wear a mask to 7-Eleven, you are the problem with this country. What's the point, dude? Like, I mean, I
mean, you're not going to change anyone's minds by posting something like that, I think.
No.
But it's just, that's why I'm in this weird position with it, because like I said, there are days when I'm on and it's like, I have to be very intentional about what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. I go on Etude of the week. I'm maybe, when I scroll through my feed, my goal is I will watch the first like 3 to 5 videos or music things that friends of mine have posted, mm-hmm. and like actually watch and listen to the whole thing. I think that's the beautiful thing that we need to be sharing with each other right now. And if we can support each other in sharing the creative and beautiful things that we're doing, mm-hmm. Hopefully it can sort of just not even cancel out, but just sort of, provide the things that we actually should be using social media for, and encouraging that,
Yeah.
And that's, I guess it's sort of just like a lead by example thing in my view. Like, I'm not going to, this is the first time, and this is probably the first conversation that I've actually like had about this, because I just do it, like not engaging in this very much on purpose, and I will engage in these things.
Yeah.
and that's it.
Yeah, I like I said, I deleted the app from my phone back in right, it was right after the George Floyd thing. I felt like I was gonna have a fucking panic attack, Katie. Like I was just like, how do I can't respond. I have so many thoughts, and like I see so many issues with the way people are posting about it, and I also see a lot of people posting things that I agree with, but like.
Yeah.
What do I do? Do I really get into this knockdown, drag out discussion about such a sensitive topic over Facebook, where at any moment I'm gonna have to put my phone down and go do something? No, and that was what I said. I was like, I can't do it.
Yeah.
And
if you really have an issue with somebody that you love who is posting things that you are just like, who are you, and how are we friends? Call them.
Mm-hmm.
Get off of Facebook. Give them a call. Say, hey, let's go have lunch. I'd love to talk to you about this.
Yeah.
And be prepared to actually listen to what they have to say instead of trying to just convince them that they're wrong.
Well, and I want to be clear here. It's less about the topics and more about the attitudes.
Right.
I'm not the kind of person to look at someone so I knew people who right after the George Floyd thing happened said, hey, maybe this is, even though it looks super bad, maybe this is a case where we should wait for more details before we start passing judgment, which is a very reserved way to look at things. I don't necessarily agree with that in the context of the George Floyd killing, because it's on video. I mean, it's just terrible. It's not a way to treat people. I think that's a good approach for a lot of the sort of like, police kill an unarmed person kind of situations, but it's those people, like, I don't necessarily agree with that again, but like I'd love to talk about it. But what's not productive is looking at that person and going, you know what, you're only saying that because you're a racist and you want cops to kill black people, which is literally what I saw a friend of mine say to another friend of mine who posted that. And I was like, dude, are you kidding me? Are you serious? Yeah. Do you know this guy? Do you have any idea? Like, this is, if you know him at all, you know he's not a racist person.
Right. I mean, to me, this is why it's a problem, because these people should be angry.
Agreed.
I think the anger and the way that people are feeling and the way that they're expressing themselves are beyond valid.
Yes.
Period.
Yes.
And I think that, if that means that they need to express those things in a very, like harsh way or whatever, on whatever platform they want to, fine. I don't judge you for that.
Right.
But I think that we all have our own, our own places in all of this, where we have the decisions that we can make and how to engage and how to judge that for ourselves.
Right. And to go back to the idea of, I can't have every thought and every idea and I can't know everything. It may be true that like my anger at watching that video and the sort of, dude, I thought I was going to throw up, dude. I mean, it was an idea. I couldn't even watch the whole thing. I mean, I really couldn't. I'm not ashamed to admit that. I couldn't watch the whole thing. I got about 3 minutes in and I was just, I can't do this. I'm watching a guy die slowly. It's one thing to watch a video where a dude gets shot. It's another thing to watch that. That's no one should see that. I'm sorry, but well, it's not true.
I know what you mean.
So my feelings of disgust at watching that, my feelings of anger are justified for sure. However, just because someone doesn't have the exact same response as me doesn't mean that they're a bad person. Maybe they're being a little more rational than I was being. It's not right to just assume if you're angry about something that is bad, then you're sort of higher on the moral totem pole than someone who maybe looks at it and is able to maybe not have as much of an emotional reaction and to think about things a little more rationally. That wasn't me in that context, but it doesn't make me more justified. All right, so. We spent like 30 minutes on this. Let's
this is, we can have other conversations about this later.
So you lived in Boston for a year, 2 years?
3.
3 years? Really? Oh my gosh.
I think it was almost 3.
We've known each other so long, because I remember when you moved and I remember when you came back.
Yes, we've known each other for many years.
Let's talk about this time in Boston. What brought you there, and what were you involved with in Boston?
So I born and raised in Colorado. So this is the first time that I had, since I was a kid, lived outside of the state. And I think a part of me had the mindset of, I think it would be good for me to live somewhere else and have some other experiences. I've always traveled a ton. I've traveled, been to a lot of countries. I'm so grateful for all the places and experiences I've had in that regard. But I want to say, yeah, I guess it was 3 or 4 years ago. I was helping to run a masterclass in Miami for the flutist. She's incredible, Marina Piccinini. And I met Adam Workman, who is the founder, owner, president, amazing genius, who started the company Flutistry, which is in Boston. Flutistry is a company that sells flutes. That's kind of the most basic version of it, but it's not just selling flutes. It's very much like a process of understanding what instrument works best for you. And it's really beautiful the way that he thinks about things. And so he gave a presentation at this class I was running in Miami, and I remember him speaking and just being like, this is a person that I just connect with on so many levels, his values and the way he thinks about things. And I was like, I want to work there.
Cool.
Like, straight up. And then we had a conversation that night, and it was just obvious. Sometimes you just meet someone that you're like, yeah, we're like cosmic friends.
Yeah.
We've been friends in past lives or whatever.
Maybe that's what I should call this podcast, Cosmic Friends.
Cosmic Friends. Yeah,
I'll change the name of the podcast every like 5 episodes.
Write it down. It's great. And he's still one of my absolute closest, definitely still cosmic friends. But
cool.
So I was sort of in this transitional period in Colorado anyway. I was like sort of doing some things, but it's like I don't really know what I'm doing right now. And I remember talking to Adam on the phone, and he was basically like, you want to come and work in Boston? And I just said, yes, I do. Cool. And that August, I think it was that October, I went on and did a little trial of working there. And then in February, I moved.
What year was that? Because wasn't that right after Aaron Page left?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
What year was that? 28.
It would have been 2016, 17. I think was his.
The beginning of 2018.
I think 2017 was his last year at DU because he had 3 years.
October of 2017 is when I did the trial, and then February of 2018 is when I moved. I think.
I'm trying to get Aaron Page on here, but
yeah,
he doesn't respond to text messages. Dang it!
That's sweet. Just gotta call him.
I need to figure out a way to call while we're streaming so I can call him. Be like,
hey, you're
I
live.
have Katy here, and we're gonna bully you. We're gonna bully you into coming on my podcast that no one watches. We have 0 viewers right now, by the way, which is awesome.
Oh, that's great. We were talking. It's fine.
So, I'm really interested. You're talking about sorry, Adam was his name, right?
Adam.
So you're talking about Adam and sort of this process of not just selling a flute, but kind of finding a flute that fits. I know what that process is like for like cellos and string instruments. Sure. What's that process like for flutes? What are you looking for?
Awesome.
Yeah.
The whole acronym for all of this. Smart search and safe trial, which is like a whole spiel. You'll have to. I can talk about that.
It's a lot of words.
It's really amazing, actually. I mean, it's this process of, okay, how do you know when you're ready to get an instrument? It's a huge commitment. Flutes are not cheap,
Yeah.
It's, as you know, neither are cellos. Like, it's a lot. So, to have an understanding of what are your goals, what are your resources, right? Like, what is the actual budget that you have? Who are the people that you have that can listen to you, including us, working for Flutistry? It's this sort of process of understanding, okay, this is something I'm ready for, because the worst thing ever is to be searching for an instrument and then realize like, oh, just kidding, I fell in love with this $15,000 instrument and I only have $3,000 that I can spend right now. Give up and start the whole process over again 5 years later. It's awful. No one wants to do that. So it's sort of an understanding of, when am I actually ready for this? And then when you're trying, what are the things I'm listening for, and what are your goals in your life? Not only now, but in the future. Like, what are you trying to do with this instrument? Because
so like being an orchestral player versus being like a chamber music player versus a solo player kind of thing. Okay.
Yeah, if you're solely going to be a musician that's playing jazz concerts, let's say, or playing in where you're using a microphone, it's a totally different sound,
right?
And a totally different style of projection than it would be if you're playing in an orchestra or in the pit of an opera or a musical. So it's this idea of, how do you want to sound? Are you going to be a soloist? Are you going to be a chamber musician? Are you trying to do all of those things? Do you need something that's more well-rounded? Are you a student who is trying to just kind of play for fun, and you want something that just responds really quickly to you, but you don't necessarily have to try too hard?
Right.
Or do you want something that's going to really push your limits as a flute player, because you're wanting to get to that next level? It's there's a lot of consideration that needs to come into it, which ties to the types of metal and the head joint cuts, and the brands have their own sort of idea of this colors and things.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really, I learned
That's cool.
so much in those 3 years about all of that. I'm really, really grateful for that knowledge. I think it's really valuable. Adam's like the flute whisperer for real.
That's great. Yeah, it sounds like it's I mean, the details are different because it's just a different instrument, but the process is similar for cellos. It's
yeah, it's fascinating. It really is.
Yeah.
I've had some really magical moments with people, like helping them find their instrument that's now their forever instrument, and there's this bond that you share with people, that you're able to help them through that process. See them.
Is it like that scene from the first Harry Potter movie where he like grabs a wand and like angel light, and it's just like da-da-da-da.
Yes, the flute is the wand. Yeah, no,
the flute chooses the flautist.
Exactly. Yep, for sure.
What's so there's there. I mean, flutes have been around for a long time as well, but cellos have been around for a really long time. And so if you go into a shop of any decent sort of quantity of inventory, you're going to get a pretty wide range of, cellos that, sometimes up to 200 years old.
Well, that's not the case. I lied. Yeah. But yeah.
Well, the thought process is so as wood resonates, there's some crazy things that happen to it. Not a lot of it is understood by me. I'm sure a lot of it's understood by other people. Two of the things that happens is the grain structure actually loosens up a little bit, so it is able to move greater distances because it's not as tight. The other thing too is that the water molecules in the top rearrange themselves. Like if you've ever seen those experiments, the way it was described to me by a luthier, if you've ever seen those things where they have the plate and they put the sand on it and they play a tone through the plate. So it's a similar idea that as you play tones, the water molecules realign based on the vibration of the top, and so it takes a long time to do that. But I think it's like anywhere from 3 to 5 years of like pretty constant playing for a cello to be like broken in, right? Does metal act this way, or does it get worse over time, or does it stay the same?
No, I think that it is similar in some ways. I don't know the exact, like, the physics of metal versus wood. There are wood flutes though, so there's that. I think that there's absolutely a matter of playing things, and so flutistry is also an amazing place for repair, for flute repair. A really good repair department. So I've learned a lot from that also, and knowing, like, whenever you have to, whenever you get a new instrument, or you have to, repad an instrument or whatever, playing it in is really important, because things change and adjust, and I think that I just don't think it's as long of a period of time, but I could be wrong about that.
One of the things that I find super fascinating is, and I just checked myself on this and I was right, the oldest instrument that's been found, for a long time it was considered to be the Anasazi flute from Africa. And then It was a flute found in, I think, Germany, made
Yeah,
out of a
cool.
bone, and they actually think it was actually a Neanderthal instrument, which is
That's
really
amazing.
fascinating because it brings into the idea of
Flute's the best.
well, first of all, yeah, what's interesting to me is that a flute, even a bone flute, is actually a somewhat complicated instrument. I mean, it's not obvious to me how a flute works. If I didn't have any idea about music, which you would have to assume, well, you'd have to assume they had some idea about music in order to make a tool to make music, but it's not obvious to me where to put the holes, how big they are, where to,
Yeah.
whatever. Whereas it's obvious if you find a hollow log and you go thunk, ooh, that's kind of cool, thunk thunk.
Yeah.
Oh, I can do this fast and I can do this slow. Okay, that's a pretty simple. You can see how that kind of evolves into rhythm, right? But it seems to me like the flute is a counterintuitive thing to build as the first like pitched instrument. And it kind of brings into this like conversation about what is music, like why do we do this, and the fact that it seems to be cross species and actually may have at least the if we traced the musical line of humans back, may actually go back since before we were even human, just like cooking, right? Like humans didn't invent cooking. We were cooking, like say it wasn't even us, it was a different species before anatomical humans even came on the scene. For like 1 million or so years we were cooking before things that were like you and me started to kind of crawl out of the trees. I don't know, what do you think that is?
I mean, I think there's so much in there. I feel like there's this book I've sort of been on and off reading called The Mysticism of Sound and Music by Hazrat Inyat Khan, and it's incredible. Basically, it brings up the point that everything that exists is because of music, basically.
Ooh.
Talks a lot about, vibration and light and sound and how all of that ties us together with nature and with each other, and the origins of the earth come from music, period. Like it's really such a beautiful testament to what music is, and why it's so important to who we are, because it's basically made us who we are. If you get down to that molecular level of it's the vibrations, and I think that in a way there's this connection to flute. We talk about this higher vibration of existence, and flute is at the highest vibration of the instruments, and it's controlled with the breath, which is such an important thing in everything.
That's okay. So actually that actually makes a lot of sense, because I don't know about the higher vibration thing. I tend to be skeptical when people start to use words like vibrations and energy, because I don't think we're using them in really the same way. Like when you talk about like musical vibrations and then you talk like the vibrations of existence, that's not the same kind of vibration. And I think whatever. But
that's a different argument. But
yeah. So, but I'm also just a skeptic about weird mystic stuff, which I need to loosen up a little bit, because anyway.
I think it'd be interesting to hear what you think about it.
Yeah. So, well, the point about using the breath is something like just a second ago when I was saying it's not obvious to me how you go from I have an idea about music to let's make a tool, and that tool is the flute. But actually now that you bring it up, it makes sense that we would be singing, that would be the first way of like of manipulating pitch, and that using the breath and maybe some I mean, this maybe doesn't occur to us because we have so much entertainment at our fingertips, but some bored ass Neanderthal in a cave picked up a bone with a hole in it and went, oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh, and this one's shorter. Oh, but I don't have to have multiple of them. If I just make a hole, I can shorten it. That's not actually, that doesn't seem like it, maybe it would take a couple generations, but that's actually not a long time to figure that kind of thing out. So it's actually a great point that you made. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, I think that the relationship to singing, I'm glad that you brought that up. I think that flute is actually much more closely related to singing than it is to the other woodwind instruments. In the way that we play, in the way that we study it, I think that it's much more about the body than it is about the actual instrument.
Yeah. I would say Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it seems like a lot of anybody who plays an instrument talks a lot about the body anyway. Like I talk to all my students about, listen, man, if you jack your shoulder up like this, not only are you gonna get, not get a good sound, you're gonna completely fuck your back. I mean, so we talk a lot about kind of the physical aspect, and really
a lot of here. It's this part.
Oh yeah. Oh my god. When I was an undergrad. When I was an undergrad, I had to take, a couple methods classes. I had to take 4 because I was a composition major.
Sure. Yeah.
And woodwind methods wrecked my face, dude. Seriously. And I was taking this like my senior year, so I was not practicing the bassoon, dude. I was practicing for my recital. Like, I'm sorry. And I told my professor, I was like, listen, man, I'm gonna do as much practice on this thing as I can, but I have a recital in like 4 months. Like, you understand, right? And he's like, yeah, totally. Like, just do your best, But it wrecked my fucking face, dude. Like, I would practice for like 10 minutes, and I just felt like I had lifted weights with my jaw,
Right, then that's not how you should feel. I love that too. The flute's the most like relaxed.
Yeah. Well, this was bassoon, so with the reed, I was having to pinch with my mouth, and I don't have those muscles, and so I'm doing this all the time, and I'm trying to breathe, and it was a whole mess. But
I know. It's a hot mess. It's true.
So the idea of like where music comes from and why it's something that we continue to do, I think it makes a lot of sense for me if you look at what non-humans do with sort of pieces of music. As far as I know, as far as I understand, which is again, like what?
Nothing good.
As far as I understand, which is not much, we're the only species that combines a sense of relative pitch, not necessarily absolute pitch, but relative pitch and rhythm into something cohesive. And all of music can be distilled down to this idea of relative pitch and rhythm. And if you marry those two things together, you get music. And of course, the possibilities are endless, as we know. So birds, for instance, some birds have like up to 500 different calls, and they mean different things. Here's what's interesting though. If I don't really have any instruments around, but okay, if I go ba da 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 da, what is that? You know what that is, right? Okay, if I go ba da 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 da.
Yeah.
Okay, but I pitched it slightly higher, not an octave higher, but just slightly higher. Birds don't do that. If you record a bird call and play it back like pitched up a whole step, they don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So which is interesting because it calls into question. They are using different pitches, but it seems like they're not actually listening to the relationship between the pitches. They're simply listening to the order of the pitches, and that's not really the same thing.
Yeah.
And then you've got things like insects and frogs that engage in rhythmic activity as for mating calls and stuff like that, but they don't really utilize pitch. There's no variance, or if there is, it's incidental to the actual content. And yet we bring those two things together, and so it kind of calls in the question of like what do we mean when we say music? Is it just the sort of attempt to sort of organize things in time, or is it something else? I don't know what your thoughts are about that. I don't know what my thoughts are about that.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know the answer at all. So I think that, all I know is really what music is in my life and how I relate to it personally. I think that there is a certain, whether you want to call it a spirituality or whether you want to call it a connection to whatever, there's something sort of, whether you think that mystical stuff is weird or not, I think there is something about it that is, that for it to be unique to our species, to human beings, is such a beautiful thing. Any sort of art,
Yeah. Let me clear something up really quickly. I don't think mystical things are weird. Well, okay, but I get accused of this a lot because I do tend to poo-poo things like somebody was meditating and they met the jaguar god or something. Okay, did you really? I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to take your word for it. I'm sorry. Like,
that's the thing, you don't know unless you experience it.
Right. If you told me tomorrow, if you texted me and said, "Oh my God, I got a new dog and he's so cute, he's little and white," I'll take your word for it. Little white dogs exist. People have dogs. There's a little white dog that lives in my house. So, but at the end of the day, if I believed you and it turned out you were lying, it doesn't really change the way that I kind of go through the world. But if I take your word that you met the four-headed jaguar god and it told you all of this way to live about reality, well, if I accept that, that's going to fundamentally change not only the way that I see the world, but how I move through it. But I do think that mystical experiences are real. I've had them myself. I've had them with the aid of certain substances. I've also had them without the aid of certain substances. Where I get stuck on is where they come from.
Sure.
And it's like, is the Sufi who has this transcendental experience while praying to Allah, is it not as worthy of an experience as the guy who is at a praise and worship concert who feels like he's talking to Jesus? Is it different? Is it the same? We get so caught up on where it comes from, but I'm more interested in talking about the experience and what it is, because it's clear that we have these experiences. It's fundamental to human nature to experience the transcendent and the numinous and, dare I say, the divine. Where it comes from is the question. And yeah. I don't know where it comes from, and I don't particularly care all that much.
That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, and I'm not particularly religious. I don't use the term atheist anymore because I just don't think it
implies certain things. Yeah.
Well, it's the term itself is not wrong. It's just that it tends to be thrown up as the opposite of being a Christian. That's not what it means. And so what happens is you get a lot of when you tell someone you're an atheist, it's like, oh, well, so you everything Christianity thinks, then you think the opposite. No. You know
what they say about assumptions.
Yes. It makes asses. Big ol' asses. But I'm not particularly religious, but I still have those experiences. I've been religious. I was raised Christian. And I had those experiences when I was religious, and I've had them when I'm post religious. Yeah. So it seems pretty clear to me that they can come from anywhere. They can be induced by any number of outside sources, again, substances, or even just listening to music, or just talking to people, But I'm more concerned with talking about those experiences and what we can learn from them than fighting a war over where it comes from.
I think that goes back to what we were talking about earlier about this acknowledgement that we don't know anything, and to listen and to respect other humans' experience and acknowledge that because it's not ours, like, we have no say in whether we think it's true or not. Doesn't matter, because they do.
Yeah.
We have the choice to either, learn from that in whatever way we need to in that moment or not. And that's up to us.
Yeah.
But I just think that understanding and respect that we all have different experience and different knowledge, and that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. If someone tells me that the great juju up the mountain came to them and induced this experience, and through that experience they understood what it meant to love everyone and to care for everyone and to be open, I'm going to say, I don't believe you on the juju part. Let's talk about the loving everyone part. That's what I'm super interested in, because
it doesn't matter if you believe them or not.
If it's true, it's true whether it comes from Allah or the great juju up the mountain, right? So speaking of experiences that other people have had that I haven't had, I would really like to talk about LeVar Burton Reed's.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. So this actually goes back to the Boston times.
Mm-hmm.
So working for flutistry, that was my first full-time salary job. I'm working 40 hours a week, and most weekends I was traveling to flute shows. So I would go and I would exhibit. So my actual physical time in Boston was not really spent playing flute. And this is something that I ultimately, one of the reasons why I came back to Colorado is because I was just noticing this sort of imbalance in my life and how I was spending more time doing those things than I was playing music. And I wanted to figure out how to balance that. And there was a moment in Boston where I think I was really just thinking about how, man, I have not played flute at all. When I was in Colorado, I was playing music all the time with so many people, and so many chamber music opportunities and playing different kinds of music, which we can talk about again. We know about that, but and there's this moment where yeah, I felt really kind of empty because I just wasn't doing that. And it's amazing how as soon as I acknowledged that and realized it needed to be changed, two of the coolest musical opportunities that I've maybe had ever popped up.
Yeah.
It's like, what? So the LeVar Burton one came from, I wasn't at work, but it was my day off, I think. And one of my coworkers called me, and I was sure she was calling me because it was going to be like some work thing that she wanted to talk to me on my day off. And I was like, no, I'm not going to answer that call. And so then she then texted me and said, this isn't about work, call me back. And so I was like, okay. So I call her back, and she says that LeVar Burton, his assistant, had called the office because they were looking up like Boston flute, and flutistry is the first thing that came up. And they called asking if we knew anyone who could play atmospheric improvised bass flute. And, like, it was amazing. Of course, my coworker Carolyn immediately thought of me because I'd had all these experiences here in Colorado playing with my brother Jake.
Yeah.
Doing, silent film scores and doing all of these things that were totally this atmospheric improvisation, which is something that not many flutists do. I think it's becoming more of a thing that people are experimenting with, but it's been something that I've been doing for so long. It's something that I love to do. So yeah, it was amazing. So then I'm like, of course I'll take that gig. And so this turned into just to kind of talk a little bit about what this podcast is. So LeVar Burton, if you guys don't know, Reading Rainbow Man, many other things, but I think that this podcast kind of stems from that, the Reading Rainbow idea. But LeVar Burton has a podcast called LeVar Burton Reads, where he takes short stories or poetry from authors and reads it. And then he does a tour where it's LeVar Burton Reads live. And he is very specific about, which I love the concept of this, taking local authors and local musicians from whatever city that he's doing the live session in.
Awesome.
Nobody goes on tour with him, and it's always different instrumentation. Basically LeVar will read the story and say, I'm picturing blah instrument to play with.
That's so
this.
Cool. Yeah.
And then they work on finding local people. So the story that we did was from the author Ken Liu. He has a book called The Paper Menagerie, which is a book of short stories. All of them are so absolutely beautiful. A little bit sci-fi, and just the way that he writes about the human connection is, I think, incredible. So it's called Mono no Aware is the name of the story. And I read the story and immediately was like, I have to get my brother out here to do this with me. Because he's a synthesizer guy, and I'm like, I don't want to be up on stage playing solo bass flute by myself. Like, let's see if we can get him to come as well. And we did. And then oh my gosh, it was incredible. So basically I had a friend of mine, shout out Eric Mall. I'll tag him in this so he can see it later.
Shout to Eric.
He came and pretended to be LeVar, and then Jake and I would, come up with little ideas. Most of this is improvised, so it wasn't, but we would have some ideas for different melodies for different characters and sort of how to set tones for certain things. There's a moment where we're in space and Jake had to kind of make it sound like we're on a spaceship and all of this stuff. The only we had one rehearsal the day of the show, the sort of dress rehearsal where we just ran through it. Jake and I are on stage. LeVar Burton comes up. What a magical human. I cannot even, he just comes up and has this, he's just kind of stoic, but gave us these hugs, and they were like real, just so genuine.
Wow.
And he was just like, thank you for being here.
That's great.
I'm so happy you're here.
That's really
And it was just like, oh my God. And then, and then we're doing this thing, and I get goosebumps thinking about it, because it was this moment of, he starts reading the story and we just go.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this atmosphere that was created the second that he showed up.
So you knew the story at a time, right? You'd read the
Yes.
story. Okay.
Yes.
So
Yep,
so
we
you
read the
knew.
story.
Did you have like ideas of like, okay, when this thing happens, we're gonna kind of shift in this way,
Yes.
but it's
Yes.
not composed. It's like we're just
Right.
gonna sort of go into this general direction. Things are heating up. Things are getting exciting. So we're gonna kind of
Yep.
up tempo or make
Yeah.
things a little more dramatic. Okay, cool.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I'd be interesting to show you the score.
Ooh,
Right. We printed
yeah.
out the story.
I would
and
love
then
that.
wrote in little things like, try this here. Switch to this here. There are some moments where Jake would just do some synthesizer things by himself, and then there were moments when he would just maybe like add a little bit of reverb to what I was doing to make it sound more open. Just
what you guys did in that reading was phenomenal. I mean, the whole silk punk idea, which I'd never heard of until I listened to the LeVar Burton thing. I kind of looked this author up. Is fascinating. This sort of blend of like steampunk, but also like East Asian sort of like traditional aesthetic. The bass flute kind of having this almost shakuhachi kind of feel. But then the synthesizers having this digital space age kind of thing was such a weird, and I say weird in a good way. It's a weird contradiction almost of this sort of very old sound with this very new sound. But also it was just really great to hear how you guys were following his voice. And he's got such a we were talking about this the other day. His voice is really like music. I mean, the way that he crafts sentences, the way that he kind of builds, and the way that he emphasizes things, it really is like listening to music. It's not like listening to speech. It's not even like listening to poetry even.
I mean, it sort of, for me, redefined what chamber music means in that moment, because it was just so clear what needed to happen. And the connection that happened between him and between me and my brother, I mean, it was just, you could almost feel it. Like, it was so, it made it so easy to play. Can you say a little bit more about this idea of like redefining what it means? Like what? Yeah.
What was it prior to that for you?
I think we have this idea, especially as classically trained musicians, right? Which is that chamber music is was really something specific in my mind. Like, it's something that is pre-composed. You rehearse. It's something that is pretty clear. And I think that was a huge misconception on my part, because I think that's actually a very surface level idea of what chamber music is and what it should be. I think that realizing that it's more about this connection in being able to listen to each other and to respond. I think a lot of times just a really good conversation feels more like chamber music than anything.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah. So and I think it's one of the things that I tried, because I like you, when I was in school I played a lot of chamber music. One of the things that, especially once I got to like grad school, we tried to do was we tried to leave room for spontaneity in performances. And we tried and we did I don't know how successful we were, but it'd be things like, hey, this place we've got the melody, change it up every time you do it. We'll try to follow you, and it's hard to do that. It's hard to do that because it butts up against the sort of academic idea of prepare. No, have a plan, stick to it, and this is how you play things. But that's not, if what made music interesting was that there was a plan that's crafted and then you stick to it, we'd just be listening to computers. And I know we do listen to computers a lot with like electronic music, but it's a person manipulating the computer, telling the computer what to do. It's not the computer it's not like you plug in the notes and the rhythm into Sibelius and then you just hit play and this is great.
Right.
No, it sounds like shit. We need that human element, that sort of spontaneity, and the feeling in that LeVar Burton reads thing was it was very spontaneous. I mean, obviously
there were moments in our rehearsal. I will never forget. It was just so cool. I was playing. It was when the main character came. It was just this really beautiful moment, and it was a moment where I just sort of, LeVar left some space, his ability to leave space was just like absolutely incredible to me.
That did really stick out to me when I was listening to it.
God, just amazing. But I played this little line, and then there was a moment and he didn't continue reading, and he just sat for a second, and then he looks over at me and just says, "Katy, you are a dancer."
Oh my God.
I was just like, oh my God.
See, from anybody else, I'd be like, okay, whatever, man. From LeVar Burton, it's like, oh God,
oh my
really?
God.
A dancer?
But just what a beautiful moment, because I feel like when you're able to have an experience with someone like that, to me, the amount of just awareness of others and the connection that we had was just so genuine that when a connection happens, when something, you can feel that. And then he responds to that in a way that's just like, oh, it's like so cool.
Yeah, it's like the sort of it's like the bandwidth kind of narrows in a way of like you can get to a place where you're no longer kind of thinking about how things can get derailed. There is no derailing. There's no rail. You're just in a direction.
Yeah.
Sort of everything just flattens out, and it's not that things lack detail anymore. It's just that all directions kind of become open to you, and there is no really wrong choice there. That's kind of that. So that's one of those things that's one of those experiences that I try that I kind of put in the mystical category. Like I don't get that. I don't know what that is, because I'm constantly thinking about how things can go wrong, where I can get off the beat, whatever, where I can play a wrong note, or where I can, my bow will squeak or something like that. Hi, Mama Wherry. But there is and I don't really know how to get there. It just seems to happen sometimes. And I experienced this with Balinese Gamelan actually more frequently than anything else.
Absolutely.
Where the idea that you could screw up is just not even in your brain. You're just doing it, and you still screw up. That is true.
Yes.
It's just it's a lot easier to go, it's in the past. Maybe part of that is because if you're playing like gangsta, it's like there's 8 other people playing my part, and no one's gonna notice. I can just sort of makes it yeah. Well, actually, so this is good, because one of the other projects that you worked on in Boston was with Gamelan Galactica, which is very, very unique gamelan, and I would love for you to talk about that a little bit, because that.
Yeah. So I think without getting into this for like 3 hours, I was realizing the other day that I don't talk about gamelan in my flute world as much as I should, because it's really shaped who I am as a musician. I mean, in so many ways.
Agreed.
And so I think just to acknowledge that, Joe and I, we know each other from gamelan. That's like why we're here now. And I think, just there is so much depth that, again, we would take way too long to get into, but of what it means to play music and to connect with each other in a way that I think a lot of Western musicians just don't get to feel unless you play that music. Like it's something, there's something really, really magical and just special about it. But so I played with there's the gamelan here in Denver, Tunas Mekar. Love them so much.
Tune up my car. Tune up my car. Tune up
that I've been a member of since 2015. So, tune up my car. Yeah, exactly.
I think we joined about the same time, because I joined the summer of 2015, and I think you joined a couple months after that.
Yeah, November 2015. I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's amazing, right? It's so many things. But so when I moved to Boston, I was so grateful that there was a gamelan there, right? It was at MIT, and totally a different situation than Tunas Mekar here. There were very different vibes, but of course, there's so many vibes in gamelan, so it would be different. But long story longer, I was there, and this is the second one of the most amazing, musical opportunities, experiences that I've had. our teacher, there's two teachers, Evan Zipperin and Zipporin, however you say his last name, sorry Evan, and Dewa Alit, who is he's Balinese, and he writes amazing music for gamelan. I mean,
he's a murderer.
Like, blow your mind.
He's an absolute murderer. Salakat is his gamelan in
yes.
They're in Bali. Yeah, they're in Bali.
So
Salakat's nuts. Salakat is like it's just if you mixed Balinese gamelan in a blender with like LSD and mushrooms and a bunch of other weird, and then just laid it out to dry, that's what you get. You get gamelan Salakat, and it's freaking it's so ridiculous what these guys do. It's insane. Yeah.
So I'm so lucky because like I was one of the people who had gamelan experience, because this group is like, it's an MIT class, so it's the students are always sort of cycling through, which is difficult with gamelan because I mean Tunas Mekar existed for over 30 years now, and it's a lot of the same members.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So to have people that actually know not only the technique but the repertoire and have played together for that many years is something that is so special. And Galactica isn't really that way now, but that gave me an opportunity to play not only Dewa Alit's music, but like that's the first time I got to play Rayong on all of his pieces, which was just like,
oh sweet, yeah.
So anyway, so this is all happening. I'm in this group rehearsing twice a week. There's a woman named Jody Diamond who's pretty prominent in the gamelan community who also plays the flute. And as I was working at Flutistry, we got a request for a flute repair from Jody at Gamelan Galactica, whatever her email address is. It's not that. But it had gamelan in it. And my coworker was like, oh, you play with this group. Do you know her? And we hadn't met yet because we'd missed each other at rehearsals.
Okay.
But that it was just this crazy, like, how does this happen, And then I met her, of course. And then there was one rehearsal where her flute was finished getting repaired. So I took it with me to Galactica rehearsal because we were going to have it right after I was off work anyway. And then she's kind of an adult amateur flute player. She's played flute, but is more into gamelan, So she was like, Katy, will you play my flute for me? Because I want to hear how it sounds now that it's been fixed. And Dewa Alit was there. And this is like, I don't usually just like bring my flute with me to rehearsals and be like, listen to me play, guys. Like, it's not the vibe that I usually have, but I was just playing some stuff and Dewa Alit was like, holy shit, you know how to play the flute really well. Yeah. And then he approached me and said, I've been thinking about writing this piece for gamelan, and it's the Lou Harrison gamelan. It's like American gamelan. It's like a different.
It's one of the aluminum ones, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And flute.
For the two people who are listening that don't know, gamelan is typically made out of bronze, not aluminum. Yeah. So totally different sound from aluminum.
Thank you, two people who are here, whoever you are.
We had 5 people at one point. So.
What? Yeah. So this turned into something that was incredible. So it was a piece written by Dewa Alit for Western flute.
And kind of for you too, right? I mean,
for me, yeah. I mean,
I'm so jealous.
I know it was. I'm so grateful for that. I mean, what a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
Yeah, it was very, very, very cool. And I'm just, to be able to premiere a piece, especially a combination of these two styles of music that I just, that mean so much to me. It was something really special to be able to do.
Yeah,
and that premiered at MIT. So I got to play the 2 venues that I ever played in Boston were the theater at MIT and the big venue that we played with LeVar Burton.
Wow.
So it's just like, okay, cool.
That's
guys.
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, hey,
so
Katy,
grateful.
let's take a short break. Like less than 5 minutes. Sorry to the third person who just joined. We're gonna come right back. Oh my god, I didn't make a be right back slide, so I'm just gonna do the starting soon slide. Sorry guys, it's already started. I'm gonna get my shit together. I don't know what I'm doing here. I literally am just making it up as I go along. If you are watching, maybe do us a favor, go to the description and look at some of Katy's social media. Go listen to some of her videos and her recordings. If you're a musician, join Etude of the Week. I know I'm gonna do that. And maybe even toss a comment on the video and let me know if you guys want anything in
Yeah.
particular. And we'll be right back.
Oh,
All
great.
right, unmuting, and we're back. We have
Whoa.
4 viewers. We got a viewer through the break.
What?
This is great.
Yeah.
What were we talking about? We were talking about Gamelan Galactica.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm gonna go find. I'm finding it difficult to kind of talk about that because it's hard to talk about it if like without laying out a ton of groundwork on gamelan, which
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
really suited to do. So
Yeah.
what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go later and I'm gonna toss in the link to that video in the description.
Cool.
If I can find it, I'll find it.
Yeah, I can. I have it saved.
Great. Yeah. If you want to send that to me, I'll toss that in the description. You guys can go listen to it because it's
Yeah,
freaking
it's
ridiculous.
Really.
So we actually, I don't know if you know this, but when that happened, a bunch of the Tunas Mekar folks got together at the Banter, and we watched it on stream. It was
live, yeah.
It was live, and it was fantastic. We were all just like, we didn't know what to expect. I mean, it's a brand new piece for. Oh my God, Aaron Herrick! That's my best buddy, my best friend since I was 10. We started playing cello together. He's my best buddy. Hey, buddy, dude, thanks for watching. This is great. So anyway, so I don't know if I didn't know if you knew that, but we all got together. We got snacks.
That makes me feel so nice.
We got snacks and drinks, and we watched you guys, and we applauded when you came on stage. It was fantastic. It was great.
So cool. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a special thing.
So with like gamelan is you kind of have this you're not only a flute player, but you also play gamelan, but you also have played steel drums before.
Yeah.
I'd like to talk about your experience playing steel drums, but I don't know anything about
Sure.
steel drums. So I mean,
Yeah.
I'd love to like hear a lot about that from you. But I'm also kind of interested in this like bigger context of like what has been playing non-flute instruments, which is everything I guess, but flute and non like Western music, like non-classical music, academic classical music. How has that shaped you as a classical flutist, if I may give you that label?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's the real thing. Yeah. I love this question because I think it sort of outlines a lot of really important concepts. But to talk about it, I have to kind of go back in time to where I started, I guess, and what my idea was of what it meant to be a flutist. And I think that I'll tell my James Galway story later if we have time.
All right, yeah.
It's amazing, but I think I'll start with this particular concept when I decided to. Well, I always sort of knew that I was going to be a musician. Like I started playing flute, and it was just like, okay, this is the thing I'm going to do now. So
How old were you when you started playing?
I think I started a little later. I think I was 11 or 12.
Oh, okay.
When I got my first flute. So and I
Cool.
I didn't really take lessons until high school.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Just like in band class and stuff.
Yeah. I got a private teacher pretty late. I think it was my junior year of high school.
Oh, wow.
A real good private teacher. My first teacher was actually a clarinet player and taught me a lot of bad habits.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah. So I was determined. It was the thing. I was like, I'm going to do this.
I was going to say that doesn't seem to be a good recipe to create a professional flutist.
No, this is not a suggestion for anyone.
No, yeah. For anyone listening, that is not the way to do it.
No. Yeah, get a teacher.
Early.
Do that.
Early.
But still, I figured it out, I guess, and my first real teacher was Michelle Stanley. She teaches at CSU now. Kicked my ass and I needed it. She was like, listen, if you want to do this, you better get your shit together right now.
I had a teacher, I'm not going to say his name. I had a teacher one time who told me, listen, if you play Beethoven like that, I think you should consider quitting playing the cello.
Yeah. Honestly, though, those lessons I think are so important. You try to be so nice to everyone all the time. And that meant when I had that lesson where she was like, if you do this way, it's not going to work. I was like, oh, okay, got it. I'll do this now. I didn't know scales or anything before then. I mean, it was a mess. So but I did it. So then my goal was, okay, I'm going to go to college, get my undergrad degree in flute performance, and I want to be in an orchestra. Just like in a way, that's sort of like the classical music path. Like if you want to have a solid job, you say, I'm going to be in an orchestra.
That was my mindset pretty much until I graduated from undergraduate school. Yeah.
I mean, it's like if you're going to job.
That's the path. That's the
education. You're going to become a teacher. Like this is what you're going to do. Otherwise, it's like, well, I don't know. So that was my idea going into college, and I worked really hard at that. But the more I had to practice excerpts, the more I hated them. I mean, I was just miserable. Like having to take something that's so short and make it absolutely perfect was so just against my character and my nature. Like I want to play things like me. And no, looking back now, it's like, learn how to play the right notes and the right rhythms, Katie. Don't like it's fine. So whatever. But past Katie was annoyed with having to practice excerpts. So
I feel that because current Joe is very annoyed with playing.
Okay, good.
I understand. I don't know. I'm glad that you have a better relationship with them, but it's never changed for me. They're necessary. It's a good thing to do, but God damn it, it's frustrating.
Well, I mean, now I see it as a bigger picture. Then it was like practice this excerpt, excerpt. Now it's like, oh, listen to what this means in the context of this symphony. Which is how we should. Anyway,
can you get if in the bigger context of this excerpt, can you get that in this one
Right.
20 bar excerpt.
Right.
Yeah.
And in a way, it's auditions are kind of a little bit of some bullshit because taking that solo out of context is not the same thing. So
Yeah.
you're doing something completely different, actually.
Right, and you're also you're not only missing the sort of broader temporal context, but you're also missing the vertical context of the harmony and the other rhythms and the other instruments. And it's like, okay, so maybe in this excerpt, yes, the flute is playing this part, but it's the same exact part for like the cello. Okay, that's flute by itself and cello by itself, and flute with cello is three completely different sounds. So how are you supposed to get the same? Like when you listen to that excerpt, are you supposed to try to get the same tone? That's not even possible. There's no cello playing with you. There's also, so I did I just want to tell this one quick story about how auditions are a little bit bullshit. Back in February, I subbed for the Steamboat Symphony, and I was sitting assistant principal, and the principal cellist was I'm not gonna say her name. She used to play. She played for the St. Louis Symphony for like 40 years, which is a fantastic symphony. That's like you get that job and you keep it for life. And she was an incredible player, and she was she's older. She's retired, but she just crushed it. And she didn't have a car when she was there, and the weather was really terrible. So I picked her up on the way to rehearsals and concerts and stuff, which is also great on my end because I got to really talk to her a lot about because this is before coronavirus. So I was actually about to take like about 5 auditions between then and like August. Of course, that didn't happen. But so I got a chance to pick her brain about the audition process. And one of the things I asked her about was I was like, there's this idea that like you can listen to the recording, and you can even listen to the recording of the symphony that you are auditioning for. And yet, if the conductor is different or if the principals are different, you're not going to play it the way they want to hear it. And so how much of this really, like, is it true that there is a high level of subjective nature to these auditions? She was like, it's mostly subjective. In fact, I was sitting in the audition panel for, we were looking for a principal bassist.
So fascinating audition panels. I've had the opportunity a few times now too. And it's like, whoa, I get it.
Yeah. I've never done that. I actually was supposed to be a judge for all county concerto competitions, but then it just didn't work out. Unfortunately, it was going to be a cool job, but anyway, so she was sitting on the panel for this principal bass auditions, and they got to the 3rd round, which is not blind, and the guy that had been their favorite this entire time, all of them, they were like, this guy probably is going to get the job. He came up, he played for about like 1 or 2 excerpts, and the conductor said, thank you for being here.
Wow. Yeah.
And I was like, well, why? I mean, I'm sure he played just as well. And she was like, we didn't know that he was playing German style bow.
Oh.
And the conductor wanted a section of all French style bows.
Wow.
Which is, if you ask a bass player, is pretty much an aesthetic choice. There are things that are easier on a French style bow than a German style bow, but there's nothing you can do with one you can't do with the other.
Yeah.
Like, I've never been able to tell the difference between the two. And it was like he just wanted visually a section that all played French style bow, because all cellists play French style, all violists and violinists. There's no German style for those instruments. And I was like, oh my God, are you serious? This guy spent like a week of his life staying in St. Louis, auditioning, winning 2 rounds, to be told to go home because it so happened he played in a bow style that I mean, what the hell? This is crazy. And she's like, that's a true story. That seems to me like that would probably be on the extreme side of that level of subjectivity.
I doubt it. I don't think it is, actually. I think that's they have to choose. They have to choose someone, and there are so many people that want those jobs. That any of those things are a way to get someone to get out of there.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like it would be like if I said, listen, Katy is a great flute player. I would love for her to be principal. I just don't like the way her pinky looks. Like, that doesn't matter. Like, it has zero impact on your playing. Your playing is independent of the way your freaking pinky finger looks.
I totally agree. It is, but that's subjectivity of it is so real, Yeah. And it's so fascinating because I think that there's, talking about if it's a different conductor, it's different. If you have someone subbing in a different section, it's different. If if whatever, right? That flexibility needs to be a thing.
Yeah.
Like, and undergrad Katy right? Not only did I not really understand what it means to, play in a section like that, because I had no experience doing that really at that time, but, it's like you are expected, you learn a thing this way and this is the way you play it. And it makes that flexibility so hard, because then if you have to do something a little different, all of a sudden it's like, well, now I don't know what I'm doing at all. It's like, so anyway, so when I was doing all the things, practicing so much, and I was just not really that happy with it. I was doing fine. I was, I won a concerto competition. I was like, this, which started my international traveling situation, and all of this, and then just sort of realized that like there was something missing for me. And I had one of my best friends was a percussion major, and he was like, hey Katie, you should absolutely join the steel drum band. So DU, where I got my undergrad, had a steel drum band that was so great. And I'd always gone to the concerts because like all my friends were in the band and it seemed just like a lot of fun.
Yeah. But
I was like, I can't do that. I don't have time. I have to practice my excerpts. I have to do my recital stuff. I am so busy. I can't. Yeah. I was working at the time at Apple. So I was like doing all these things. And then I was just like, finally something just hit me that was like, I need to do this. I'm just going to join. Screw it. So I joined, and it was the first time I really experienced like just having fun playing music. It was like this thing, and I wasn't playing flute at all. I was just playing pan. Yeah. But it was like, oh my gosh, and there's something about learning something for the first time that opens up this understanding of like, oh yeah, I don't have to know everything. Yeah. And it's okay to be that like that fuck who's just going, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm gonna pretend like risk, so yeah. Aaron Herrick, if you're still listening, I have you to credit in some ways for my very long-lasting love for and drive to experience non-Western classical music, because Aaron Herrick introduced me to throat singing, tube and throat singing. Oh yeah. Through this group called Hunhar 2. And I had been interested in like Indian music and stuff, but it was like I tossed on Ravi Shankar and Pandora. I never thought to study it. I just it sounds really cool. Yeah. And he shows me this hour-long concert of Hunhar 2 in California, and it blew my mind. I was like, what's going on? Like with the Indian stuff, it's like, okay, it's tonally it's a little weird, but it's a string instrument, and I kind of, you can look at it and see what's happening. You can't look at someone who's throat singing and figure out what's going on. It doesn't work like that. And it was just it was a bug that got under my skin. I was like, I have to figure out what this is, and maybe even he's here, and maybe even learn to do some of it myself. And that just watching YouTube videos, reading whatever I could find on the internet. There's a documentary called Genghis Blues, which is a fantastic documentary about this. Have you seen it? No, but I'll check it out.
Yeah, so it's about this blues musician named Paul Pena, who was born blind, and in like the 80s, I think, like this is a while ago. He learned, so he was a big fan of the radio, and he would listen to the radio all the time, and that's like how he learned music. And he ended up somehow, I think he was living in New York. He somehow ended up getting a Russian radio station. He was able to tune into it, and they were playing this throat singing stuff. Wow. And he was hooked, and so he found out that they played it on a bit of a schedule, and he would sit there with a cassette recorder and record it, and he would listen, and he learned how to do it himself. And he eventually, people got together and got him to Tuva, and so the documentary is about him going to Tuva, which is still a really freaking difficult place to get to, and even more difficult 40 years ago. And so I got it opened my eyes to the fact that like there is more than the surface level of what I'm hearing. And then it turned into I spent about a year in grad school doing some really deep research into this stuff and the culture of the music, and that also opened my eyes to like, hey, I can't just look at the sort of digital details of how this music is working. I have to learn about the culture. I have to learn about why this is important. Why is this style of singing called this name? That's important. That's and knowing that one detail can completely change the way that you experience that thing. And then my first year in grad school at DU, I'm walking through and I see a poster that was like West African drumming, and I was like, fuck yeah. That's how I met Aaron Page. because he was teaching that class, and I would stay afterwards and I would just pick his brain about ethnomusicology, and I would just be like, what is it? How do you do this? And we got into his life living in Ghana and how he studied this music, and and that, of course, Aaron Page then led me into Tunas Mekar. It took a year of him convincing me, but I eventually went because it was the summer and I had nothing to do, and I was like, fuck it, I'm bored, I'll go. And I sucked. I had no idea what was going on. I couldn't even follow anybody, and it pissed me off. It pissed me off. I was like, I've been doing music for a long time. I understand music. Why don't I get this? And so,
because we're sitting next to each other.
Yeah.
Learning Jagra, like, what?
That's right. We learned the Jagra Pawada melody together. That was our first real. Yeah, we fucking crushed it, man. It was hard, but anyway. So yeah. So it's and it led me to a much more appreciation of sort of my main area of study, which is classical music. It's not enough to just know the cello part. It's not enough to know the piano part. It's not. It's not even enough to sort of know the sort of bullet points of the composer's biography. Yeah. What was he or she doing at this time? What were they experiencing? Beethoven's Ninth, fantastic piece. Once you learn that he never heard a single note, that changes the way you experience it. It gives me goosebumps. I'm literally experiencing goosebumps right now just thinking about it. Yeah. He never listened to it. He never heard it. And yet it completely changed everything in the West. Yeah. I mean, the visual effect of it. I mean, first of all, you're walking in thinking you're hearing another Beethoven symphony, which first of all, which has to be at the Ninth, has to be, whoa, I'm going to see the premiere of the new Beethoven. This is insane. Yeah. And then there's a choir on stage, which there's never vocal music with a symphony. It hadn't been done. And there's a choir on stage. Not only that, they don't sing a single note for 3 entire movements. Then the 4th movement starts, and the soloists start singing. And we take it for granted that it is what it is now. But at the time, it shattered the foundations of Western classical music. And those occurrences are commonplace. They happen all the time, but we take them for granted because we're looking at them from the past. And getting into Balinese music and getting into Ghanaian music, that kind of opened my eyes to having that experience with Western music, which at the time I was thinking, this is stale. I was the guy who touted the line, classical music is dead. It's bullshit. It's not dead. What are you talking about? People who say that are idiots. Sorry. It's not dead. It's just changing. The way we do it is changing. That's it. But it's going to change. It always changes, and when you get into Balinese music and North Indian music and South Indian music and Tuvan music, you realize it's
that it's not music that you know.
Right. Yeah. But you realize then the thing that I'm struggling with is this idea of tradition. Because all traditions had to start somewhere. So what's the length of time that has to go by, or the number of people who are doing it, where it goes from being a novelty to a tradition, to something that we do that has meaning? It's not so clear to me. I don't really know how that works. And also when you look at, like, if you say Balinese Gamelan is traditional Balinese music, that's not really true either. Balinese Gamelan encompasses some things that you would call traditional, these pieces that are passed down for potentially hundreds of years. There's a lot of new stuff happening that's really, really out there.
I think that applies to most,
right.
That way,
it's not a unique feature of any particular music. It's all changing because music is a cultural sort of artifact. Well, it's not an artifact's not the right word, because it seems like it's an old thing, but it is old. But it's being maintained, right? It's not something that was created and then just sat in a cave for a long time. So.
I mean, I think that's there's so much there to talk about, I think, but going back to, this sort of having a focused path for you and I, it was specifically in trying to get a job in an orchestra, right? That's very singular minded. Like, that's very, I think we miss a lot of the points of what orchestral music actually means then, because it's like, my goal is to get this job, so I have to do this and this and this. But then to sort of break that barrier down and go into something else, for me, the intro to that was steel drums, which led to me learning improvisation, because at that point I'd never had to. And then I started to get these gigs where they're like, oh, can you play a flute solo? And I was like, no. And pissed me off because I was like, I am good at the flute. I know how to play music. I literally could not. I had this, like, it would make me almost want to cry because I was so frustrated.
Yeah.
And so then that was like, oh, I only know like this.
Mm-hmm.
And to even just open up for 1 second and realize, like, okay, actually, I don't know anything. What am I even doing if I can't even play a solo with this steel drum band? You know?
Yeah.
So then that led to me sort of learning new things and changing the way that I thought about myself as a musician, and in learning improvisation in my own way. I mean, there's so much to that still.
Yeah.
Mom!
Oh my gosh. I love it. So to kind of change topics a little bit.
Yeah.
What is your idea? What are your thoughts about the idea, this saying of music is a universal language?
Well, oh my God, just hold on. I'm gonna wait for the garage door to close.
Did you mute yourself? Okay. This is fantastic.
That is so annoying. I'm really sorry.
No, that's fine.
Like, out
I
the
don't.
Freaking front door.
I don't care.
Family.
I don't care. It's fine.
I
Listen,
don't know.
the worst that happens is we piss off only 3 people that are listening. Okay?
Oh, sorry.
That's the worst that happens. And I don't think. I'm sure they're great people.
Yeah, exactly.
They've been listening this whole time. I'm sure you guys are great. Thank you for listening.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't really think about that concept, I guess. Like, I think it can be, depending on the way that we play. I think that music and connecting to music of other cultures, or even of other styles that you're not yourself as familiar with, can give you, if you are open to it. Like, I think a lot of people are not in the mindset of going into something and being like, okay, let me just take this in now,
right,
and try to understand you as a person or as a culture,
right,
on a level that is deeper than what I now know.
And I'm going to try to not import in my preconceived notions of what it means to make music, and also the qualifiers, what it means to make good music.
Yeah. I think that ultimately so many people play music for different reasons, right? Some of which, you can say are better than or worse than others. That's fine. We're not here to judge right now, but I think that, like, or maybe we are, I don't know. I'm not. That's fine. But I think that, if you approach music with that sort of intention of understanding and connection, then that is where it starts to become the universal language side of things. When if that music then helps you to understand someone else on a deeper level, that's awesome.
I think
showing up and playing a concerto and like, look how fucking awesome I am, like, that's not that.
So I have a number of friends who are not musical, who like to repeat this thing of, oh, music is great. It's universal. Everyone can listen to music and it makes them feel the same thing. And that is what they mean by music.
I agree with the first part, but I don't agree with the second part.
So here's what I think is a little more descriptive, or sorry, a little closer to reality. Yeah. Music is universal in the way that language is universal.
Sure.
There are obviously exceptions for, maybe there's issues with the brain, issues with the mechanics, but even if you're deaf, you learn a kind of language. You can learn sign language, right?
Yeah.
And it's Joseph and I were talking about this, and it seems like a mistake to say maybe there's a culture out there who doesn't do music. Maybe there is some island out there with a population of 100 people and they've never even tried to do music. Maybe that's the case, but every culture that I'm aware of has a really deep and rich and varied musical tradition. It's like saying American music. What the hell does that mean?
Yeah.
What do you mean American music? Do you mean bluegrass? Do you mean pop? Do you mean rap? Do you mean hip hop? Do you mean R&B? What do you mean? It's all American. There is no American music. You can't talk about American music and say this is what American music is. You can say American music encompasses all of these different, and then what does it mean when immigrants from like Mexico, for instance, come here and then form mariachi bands, and then kind of incorporate Western ideas into that. I don't know if that's really a thing that happens, but let's say that happens. Okay,
I understand the concept.
Yeah, it's like, okay, so to what extent is that Mexican? To what extent is it American? To what extent is it a mixture? How do you quantify that? So it seems to break down at some point. But if every culture does music, it's the same way as every culture does language, and they may have, Americans tend to only speak one language. There are other cultures that, people are bi or even trilingual. And yet I don't understand Indonesian, but it's a language. There's a structure. There is meaning to it. Clearly that's the case, right? I don't think you could argue against that. It makes sense. It's not a point you can argue against. It's true. Right. But I don't understand it. So you could play me hours and hours of someone speaking Indonesian, and to my brain it is meaningless because I don't know how to interpret it. I don't have the knowledge. I don't have the experience. I don't have the structure in my brain.
But if you're not just listening to the words, right? If you were there or you're watching a video or something, you will pick up on things though.
Well, you might, but you might not because
and you might misinterpret them.
Right, because okay, so like Mandarin and Cantonese.
Yeah.
At least one of those two, maybe. If not both, there is a sense of pitch inflection, and you can take one syllable, and it can mean different things based on how you inflect it on pitch. But that's not how how our brains think about English. We think about English in the sense of pitch is a way of giving accentuation to a certain word. If the end of my sentence goes up, I'm asking a question. If the end of my sentence goes down, I'm making a definitive statement. But that's not the way that pitch manipulation. It doesn't convey the same meaning. So I'm not actually sure that's even the case, that if you listen to it enough, you'll be able to pick that out, because it may be that, so like Balinese Gamelan, for instance, the first time a lot of people listen to it, they think it's out of tune.
Yeah.
But that it's out of tune to a certain standard, but to its own standard, it's not. It's a very precise way of thinking about how pitches work.
Yeah, and I think that brings all of this in together in a way, because, and this seems to be the theme throughout every topic we've talked about. Like, we all, I think, could use a little bit more humility in our lives in knowing that, there is, the amount of beauty and connection and understanding of each other that I've learned from the very minimal dip into the Balinese culture and the music is just so beautiful. And I feel like my amount of understanding is this much compared to this, but to take that and to respect it and to be grateful and to acknowledge how much there is and how lucky we are to even be a part of such a small part of that. But I think that we have this as orchestral musicians, or with that as our goal. There's this lack of understanding of the bigger picture, especially as undergraduate students. I'm not talking about professional orchestral musicians, because I'm sure that it's a different.
Well, I don't know.
Not everyone. It just depends. I mean, it's hard to generalize that, I think.
I think the word you're looking for, because you keep doing this, is blinders. It's
exactly.
You can only see this narrow view in front of you, and everything to the side is irrelevant. So
actually, they all support each other in ways that are really amazing.
While we're talking about it, I want to echo your sentiment about the impact that Balinese Gamelan has had, not only on myself as a musician, but just my life in general. I really am super thankful to Tunas Mekar and to the Lasmoan family. They've gone out of their way, above and beyond, to
it's incredible.
Do everything. Yeah. And I have so much respect for what they do. And, I have respect for every musical tradition, really, just as a matter of principle, but they've helped me to really deepen that respect and that understanding. And it's it's invaluable. I can't put a number on it. There's no way I could say this is worth $1 million, anything like that. It's worth everything. I just, the work that people like that do is, as pessimistic as I want to be about people, they help me to reset that. I mean, they really do. And that's to kind of go back to a little bit to the beginning of our conversation almost 2 hours ago. You know, one of the things that I'm missing the most right now is that sense of community from Tunas Mekar. And, you know, we are meeting a little bit and we're playing in parks, but it's not quite the same. And to, you know, just that interaction was a reset for me. As pessimistic as I and defeatist as I would feel throughout the week, you know, everybody in Tunas Mekar would just help to kind of reset that and remind me that, hey, wait a minute, actually,
we're here together.
There is something really beautiful out there to be experienced. You know,
that's what it should be in our Western music. Also, like we should have that mindset when we're playing together. And
but
it's not that.
But we've lost the community aspect of music.
Right.
I think in the West. Which is why what? Sorry.
Huh?
Which is why what? Sorry.
Oh, I just think that like Etude of the Week has become that sort of has that feeling without being in person, which is a whole nother thing, but you know. Yeah.
Well, you know, talking a little bit about how traditions kind of change. It used to be if you wanted to listen to music, you had to go to a live concert. Yep. And chances are you probably couldn't afford to do that, you know? So the best you're getting if you wanted to hear Mozart or Beethoven was you had to play it yourself. And, you know, that's why you have all these Mozart tabletop duets. They're not intended. Yeah. They're not stage pieces. They're not concert hall pieces. They're me and you are hanging out and we got nothing better to do because it's like 20 or something. And they haven't invented a PlayStation yet and there's no Netflix. Yeah. And so we are just bored as hell. And so what are we going to do? We're just going to sing because that's the only thing we can do. We can't afford instruments. We're poor peasants. We can sing. And guess what? We found this page of Mozart. And you know what's really cool about it? If I read from here and you read from there and we read opposite each other, it makes a piece of music. How cool is that? You know, it's like that kind of shows this sort of familial community aspect to music making that I think we've lost. It's become this thing of like, you make music if you are a trained professional.
Right.
Fuck that.
I agree. Fuck that. I totally agree. It's so. It makes me so it makes me not angry, but just sad when I hear people say like, "Oh, I can't do." There's this.
Yeah, the boat's passed. I played trumpet for 2 years when I was in high school, but then I quit, and now I'm 60, and now I
mean, it's opposite of what we need, and honestly, like this is why. With Etude of the Week, what I'm so grateful to what it has become, because I have felt so strongly about this for so long, that the idea that I am not good enough to share my music with you is like it breaks my heart.
Yeah.
I think it's wrong.
Yeah.
Like, and I do think that there is value in always trying to elevate whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah.
Do the practice, do the things so that you can say what you want to say. But that does not mean that because you think that you're not good enough to share what you have to share with people, like it's unacceptable to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. 100%.
Like, stop being so judgy all the time and stop making people feel like they're not worthy enough to play music. You're a human, so you should play music. I'm
not going to say we here because you and I have not been complicit in this, but there is I am going to say we because it's just easier. It is kind of our fault that people think this way, because classical music in the West has become this thing of you go to classical music concerts because you're someone of high society and because you're educated and because you're frou-frou, you know, and it's just not true. It's just not true. It's true that we've built this image because we've created an elitist sort of attitude towards art in general, but it doesn't have to be that. If you're the three of you listening right now, if any of you are college students, well, I guess you can't do it now. When things start to open back up, most symphonies, if not all symphonies, will give you a ticket for $10 and they will not stick you in the nosebleed. They will show you a sitting chart and say, where do you want to sit? And you point to the first fucking row. Do it. They may not give it to you, but go for it. I've gotten some damn good seats for all of $11 after tax. All right? Yeah. You can do it. Just go do it. No one is going to look down on you because you're wearing a t-shirt and jeans. I'm not going to. And if someone does, fuck them. Fuck them. Yeah. I listen to classical music all the time, and I don't get dressed up just because I'm listening to it on Spotify. Why would I do it just because I go to a concert hall? Yeah. Makes no sense. I mean, it kind of makes sense. A little bit. It's like, But
Yeah.
but I think one of the great things about Etude of the Week is you are showing people that, hey, you can approach this thing in a somewhat serious manner, and not serious in the sense that you want to be professional, but serious in the sense that you want to try to improve, that you
Without
that
fear of being judged.
yeah, right, and that that this thing is worth investing your time in, even hours a day. It's a lot of time. And that you do not have to sit there by yourself and put in your 10,000 hours before you are worthy of sharing what you're doing. Joseph Aaron Price on his YouTube channel has a lot of recordings that are labeled work in progress, and they're great. Really cool. I streamed a practice session to Reddit one time, and I had thousands of people watching. I'm not trying to toot my own horn. It's not because I'm great. I was just practicing, and I had like 2,500 people watching at some point. Really and cool. People are interested. They were like, "Why are you doing this thing? Why are you repeating that one line over and over?" Well, it's because I want to improve the intonation, and intonation's shitty right now, so I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it a bunch of times. Oh, okay. Well, and it's like these things that we take for granted. People are actually interested in that. People are interested in the process, and maybe that will encourage people to engage in it more if we show the value in the process, and not just in the result.
Value in the process, yes. And I think that in a way, we were talking earlier about what kind of positive things can come out of this disaster of coronavirus. And I actually feel like the structure of the symphony is something that has been sort of outdated and misconstrued for a long time. And so the opportunity to sort of restructure the way that we approach symphonic music, orchestral music in particular, is a really beautiful opportunity to have right now. So that when it comes back, now this is the time that we can really actually reconfigure the ideas that we have about what it means to go to the symphony. It doesn't have to be that anymore. But we needed something like this to break it up and to realize, like, oh, wait a second, we need to do this differently now. And and acknowledge that the music that we play is mostly like old dead white dudes, and we need to acknowledge the significance and the importance of new music written by people of color and by women, and by and to understand where are we at in our own culture now. And so the focus on that is shifting in a way that I think is actually a very, very important and good thing that came from all of the crap that's going on right now.
And for those of you who are listening, who are thinking that you're paying lip service to the idea of playing music by people of color by touting the Beethoven was a black guy thing, stop it. Stop. Just don't do that anymore.
I didn't know that.
Stop
I
it.
didn't know that.
Oh yeah, there's this whole thing about Beethoven was black. He wasn't. Stop. No, he had dark complexion. That's not black. It's not the same thing. Stop it. It's I think a fair I should be careful how I say this. I think a fair number of people kind of pull that out. It seems like the only time I've really seen people pull out the Beethoven is black thing is when people say, "Hey, we should be playing more music by people of color," and they're like, "Well, we do. Beethoven's black." Stop. No, that's not. Stop. No, stop. Don't do that. It's not what we mean.
Not cute.
Well, that's so like earlier when I said, classical music isn't dead, we're just changing how we do it. I think that's one of the ways in which we're changing, is we're saying, there is a classical music canon, and yes, it is made of mostly dead white dudes. It's just the reality that most of the classical music was written by dead white dudes. I mean, it doesn't, but there has been a focus on these composers, and it's like, you have to have Beethoven on every concert. Again, fuck that. I love Beethoven. Don't get me wrong, but God damn it, we need something different. Like, please, I'm tired of hearing Beethoven symphonies. I really am.
He doesn't just have in those works. I mean, they are still around for a reason too, but there needs to be more of a balance. So
yeah.
I'm excited about that, actually.
I think what's happened is over like maybe the past 100 years or so, maybe there's been this focus on a certain, like 20% of all the composers that are out there: Beethoven, Schubert, Schumann, Vivaldi. We could name them all, I'm sure, because those are the things that sell tickets. Putting on Vivaldi's Winter, everyone knows that piece. That's going to sell the ticket. Okay, Beethoven's Night, that's going to sell the ticket. And I think that that's valuable, and I think it's part of marketing to put out there that we're doing this thing that you are going to really love, that everyone loves, Vivaldi's Winter. But it's become so narrow that there ceases to be this variety, but it is changing. I mean, it really is. I mean, the past couple of years, every time I've gone to see, the Colorado Symphony, the Jacksonville Symphony, which is where I'm from, not from the Jacksonville, I'm from Jacksonville. It's like, oh, there is this sort of standard sort of classical piece on here, but there's also, who is this composer? What is this music? Oh, this is crazy. What is this? And maybe there needs to be more. I don't know the numbers, and I'm not gonna whatever.
It's not important.
Maybe it's true that we need to be focusing on just that. I'll take it for granted that it's true, because people get mad at me if I don't say this. I'll take it for granted that it's true that people of color and women, female composers are underrepresented. I'll take that. I'll take that to be true. Yeah, 100%. We should be including more of those. I mean, but we're in a process of change, and we're talking about an institution that's been around for a really long time. They don't change quickly, right? And they shouldn't, I don't think either, because I think too much change in too short of a time, you run a higher risk of catastrophic failure of the entire institution. And I don't think that's what we want.
I agree completely. Yeah, it's a thoughtful process that needs to be happening right now.
But I'm interested. I'm interested in the discussion, because I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know all that much about, like I said, statistics of how many times is this composer listed or whatever.
I don't know if that's really important. I think it is in its own right. I think, but just being open to the change. I think that that's a thing too. Is that through my career and my experience, in just being open to the things that kind of come into my life. And always being as sort of flexible as I can be with those things. Those are the things that have presented me with the most rich experiences. Yeah, the ones that I least expect too, that show up. A lot of the jobs that I've had and the performances that I've been able to play. I've been able to sub with the CSO a few times, and it's been absolutely incredible. I'm sure. Yeah, that sounds fantastic. But like, it all comes down to, I think, just like awareness and respect of where we come from, but also we need to acknowledge that we're going somewhere too. We can't just stay there. Yeah. But I don't know. It's really there's a lot. There's a lot there. Yeah, and to be and to be fair, while we both have some experience with orchestral music, it's not the world that we live in. You and I, that's not the professional world that I occupy, and so I'm going on a pretty limited perspective. As really, I'm a concert goer when it comes to orchestra. I'm not. I sub with like Littleton Symphony and like Steamboat. Not to belittle those orchestras, but these are not big players in the orchestra world. And so when I go to Littleton and they're playing Tchaikovsky 5, okay, great. That's awesome. But that's, it's the limit probably. I think actually that probably would be the limit for Littleton. Sorry, Littleton, but you guys really pushed yourself on that one. You did great. Good job. Congratulations.
But it was real stretchy. It was real squishy. Yeah, that's what it was. It was real squishy.
But yeah, anyway, I think it'll be interesting to see what happens next.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So we're about 2 hours and 10 minutes in, so I don't want to take too much more of your time. We started talking before we went live a little bit about how things, like, what will things look like maybe 2 years from now after a vaccine. Are we going to, like, if normal was here and now we're here, are we going to get back to normal? Is it going to be the exact same way, or are we going to get close to it? What's that difference going to be like to you? What do you think? Pure speculation? Neither of us are scientists or anything.
Obviously, I have no idea. Yeah. All I can say is that for myself, it's interesting because I think I was almost more prepared for something like this than many, because I've always just done a lot of different things. I've never, and that's sort of how I work. In straying from the orchestral career, I realized that I would not have done well in that anyway. I don't like having a job that is like, this is my job. I love having a lot of things happening. So for me, it's like that entrepreneurial sort of mindset of like, how can I have a lot of different baskets?
You're kind of looking off the beaten path for
I think that in a way is things won't be that different for me because I'm going to continue doing that, whatever feels like the path that needs to be, more energy should be put here is what I'm going to do. But I feel like in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, whatever, I feel like the traveling aspect of things will probably be less, period. And I actually think that's really good. I think it's probably good for us to focus more on who we have in our local place anyway, as sad as I am, because I was supposed to be this summer in like Switzerland and the Netherlands and China and like all of this stuff, and wasn't able to do any of those things. And personally, I'm like, I want to go.
Yeah, I feel that.
But I think that it's okay to sort of balance that out a little bit more with play in the place that you live with the people that you know. Because as we know here, we're so lucky we have so many amazing people here.
Yeah, and the music scene in Denver is super receptive to everything.
But in a way, that sort of promotes our own, the culture from where that we know that we're in or whatever. That's fine. But no, I think that the live music will come back, and it will come back strongly. I believe.
I think the same.
So much that it's like, even 1 second with somebody far away from you literally like makes me cry instantly right now, because it's just like so powerful.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's been like 6 months since we all kind of went on lockdown and all the tours got canceled, all the venues got closed. I am itching for a fucking show, and I'm actually playing a show tomorrow night, which is it's gonna be weird. It's like it's socially distanced. It's like you can only have like 20 people there. Like we all have to wear masks on stage. Our singer has to wear a mask. It's going to be interesting.
A friend of mine from who's one of the flutists of the Concert Cabal in Amsterdam, and
wow.
He was just saying like
it's a great symphony.
I talked to him yesterday about how I just said, how are things going over there? And he said he just started teaching at the conservatory there again. Feels kind of normal, but the orchestra is really weird.
Yeah,
because they have a very small audience, and they play really short shows. They're not playing a full concerts, but they're playing in Europe. The big orchestras are starting to play again.
I feel so
to hear that perspective.
I feel so badly for people who are like kids who are going to be a freshman in music school this year, and they're not going to get to do orchestra.
Yeah, but in a way, like, you got to figure it out.
I know. Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. But I mean, playing an orchestra in school has always been a super special experience for me. And,
yeah, that's true.
And it's taught me a lot. And I feel bad for their loss. I mean, I have a student he's 15. He's a damn good cellist. And we had a conversation in our lesson the other day about he's really frustrated with the way orchestra is running because his school is entirely virtual. They're not doing any in person.
Right.
And he was like, my teacher, we're doing a lot of music theory, a lot of history, but like we can't play together, and we're doing like she is giving us like orchestra parts, and like she'll ask one of us to play, and then we'll all get feedback.
Yeah, I've been getting into a lot of like random video editing jobs because teachers are trying to have a way for students to play together.
Yeah.
And they record the parts, send them to me, and I put them all together. Like but it's not.
And this kid, I mean, he's like me, and he's like you. He got started playing music in school band and orchestra in his case, and that's where he started. That's like the source for him, and he's always loved orchestra. He's always loved it. He brings orchestra music to lessons, and I feel. I mean, listen, I'm an adult. I've had those experiences.
Right.
I can be patient for a year or two before I can go take an orchestra audition. I'm fine with that. He's 15, man. I mean, it's like he's itching. He's a 15-year-old. He's impulsive on everything, and he wants to do it so badly, and he can't. And I
feel like good. We've been missing that itch for so long because we always have everything.
Yeah.
We have it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So to not have something and to find value in that thing when you don't have it is so important for us to feel that way.
I agree. Yes, I agree. I agree. In the context of kids, though, this is like you and I have had that education. This is part of their education. It's like missing a year of orchestra is actually kind of a big deal. Like that's.
Yeah.
We got to figure out. As teachers, as a teacher myself, I have to figure out how to how can I best. I can't replace it. That's pretty obvious. But I need to figure out some way to compensate for it because I can't the last thing that I want is to see kids drop out of lessons and to stop their instrument simply because they can't do orchestra in school.
Yeah.
I think that's a shitty reason to do it, but I can understand how for a 14 or 15-year-old, that's a good reason.
Right. Well, then you can get into the topic of all of the kids who would never have access to it anyway.
That's true. Yeah, and that's I think it's the same problem. That's the same problem.
Yeah.
But the optimistic way to look at it, and what I told this kid in our lesson was, we are so lucky. Yeah. Well, we're not really lucky, I guess, but in some ways, this is the best time for any of us to experience a pandemic like this, because we have Zoom, we have streaming software, we have YouTube. Dude, forget orchestra. Make a recording of yourself. Don't use your real name if you don't want to. Don't use your video. Don't use the video if you don't want to. Go get some free images of a forest or something and edit them together. Yeah, record something and put it out there. Just do it. Just do it. If that's what you're missing, if what you're missing is the exposure of the enjoyment of other people listening to you, put it on YouTube. Put it on Bandcamp. Just do it. Just do it. No one will stop you. No one can tell you no. Just do it. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Listen.
Yeah.
I'm not a smart guy. I'm not a musical expert on anything, right? I just like talking to people. I like hearing the sound of my own voice. There's 3 people watching. That's fucking awesome. It's great. I don't want more people. That's not really true. I do want more people.
Whoever you people are that are still here, I love you.
But thank you. But this is not. I'm not doing this because I want followers. I'm not doing this because I want clicks. I'm not doing this because I want to put ads on my podcast. I just want to put it out there. I miss this. I miss talking to you. I miss talking to everybody, and I miss it.
Do it on Sundays after rehearsal all the time.
I know, yeah, poker nights and stuff, and I miss that so much. And it's like I can't do it. We can't do it the way we used to do it. That's just the fact. But we are not out of options. We have tons of options, and the internet is a beautiful thing. And
we can make it that way.
Yeah, well, I think it might be
our own little bubbles of beauty on the internet. I think.
Yeah. I think it might already be that way, and so I think for this kid, what I was telling him was, you're not gonna be able to get that satisfaction of playing for other people in the same way, but you're not helpless. You have so much at your fingertips. Yeah.
Ooh,
well, on that note, maybe this is a good place to end it. So,
yeah,
Katy,
I love it.
Do you have anything else to say before we go? Anything you want to plug? Anything you're doing you want to talk about?
I mean, definitely check out Etude of the Week, everyone. Even if you're not a flutist, I think it's cool to kind of see what's happening there, and feel free to play the instruments play the etudes on other instruments. That'd be cool. There's an oboist that posts sometimes, so that's awesome.
All right. Well, again, thank you so much, Katy.
Feel free to like my Facebook thing. Any videos that I record, I have videos, some chamber things I was trying to do back in kind of the beginning of the pandemic. Joe, you and I did one.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all there. So I've been out of commission with playing for a couple months, so I'm excited to start getting back into it and posting some more stuff. So
go to the description, go look at Katy's social media, like her stuff, subscribe, whatever it is you have to do. Because I'm a dingus and I don't know how to do podcasts. We're gonna go back to the starting soon screen instead of the ending screen, because I gotta let this run for a second before I end the live stream. So we're gonna go back to the starting soon menu, but this is really the end, guys. So thank you everyone who's watching. And thank you again, Katy. And we'll see you. I'm gonna be streaming again on Saturday at like noon with my brother Bobby Engel, who just put out an album, an EP, which is super meaningful to both him and I for reasons we'll talk about on Saturday. So please check that out. And thank you again, Katy. We'll do this again soon, I'm sure.
Yeah.
All right.